Happy New Year, hunters! 2022 is here and we are making a return to the Monster Hunter videos. We had a lot of fantastic and amazing videos in 2021, and while I didn't finish the year strong, 2022 I'm definitely going to pace myself, and I have a lot of variety of Monster Hunter content coming up. Rise PC is just a day away from the release of this video, so I'll be working on a couple videos leading up to the Sunbreak release in the summer. So the first of the series that I'm going to be working on is the Evasion series. Now this is going to be a set of informative videos on the dodging and countering of various monsters in Rise. Now as you may know, wire bugs in Rise make the game very forgiving, but the key to being a successful and efficient hunter is still definitely understanding the monster attack patterns, being able to dodge punishing attacks while countering appropriate attacks to get damage back. A note here that I'll make, the iframes in Rise are a bit rough, they're not as forgiving as in World, so they were a little harder for me to flush out on the Switch. I'll try to do some more detailed testing with PC on release, so for this video I'm just going to focus on position dodging and countering since most weapons have a counter. If you've played Rise, go ahead and like this video to pay your respects for Switch Axe users. Most of these videos will be focused for general melee style weapons, but of course playstyle does differ per weapon, so some experiences may differ for you. But yeah, for those of you starting on PC, or for those of you who have already played Rise and are looking to get better or take on some of the more challenging event quests that Rise now offers, I hope these videos help you. And with that, let's jump on in. So the first in the series is of course the flagship Magnamalo. We'll go over some of the main attacks and point out which ones are counterable, so dodgeable without needing a wire bug. So Magnamalo is definitely one of the coolest monsters in Rise. He's definitely one of my favorites in general. He's a pretty aggressive monster and he can be scary at first. But in my opinion, he kind of exaggerates a lot of his moves, so once you learn them, he's not all that frightening. So let's start off with the roar, since any hunt starts off with a roar. These are actually much harder to iframe compared to World or previous games. You gotta roll exactly when the roar occurs, and that's pretty hard to time. I'm sure you can do it, and with a little bit of practice you might be able to get it a couple of times, but it's not very consistent. Might not be worth the risk. Generally, it would be easier for you to just give some space so the roar doesn't affect you. With PC, this might be a little easier since we have more frames, so more opportunity, but the timing will remain very precise. However, roars can be countered by most weapons. Again, I don't know all 14 weapons, but it is definitely counterable by a good number of the weapons, including Insect Glaive, Bow, and even Sword and Shield. When you plan to counter the roar, you have to watch his head. He brings his head backwards, and as it stops, you have a fraction of a second till the roar occurs, so you have to time your counter according to that head position. Because of the large counter window on most of these weapons, the roar can be countered. Even Bow with a dodge bolt counter, very small window, but you can still counter roars with them, so they are great openers for you to get a counter on the first roar of any hunt and then immediately get some damage in. His second roar is a recharging roar. Now he will growl a bit while rotating his head and then take a leap back and do a quick first roar. It's a lot quicker, a little harder to counter than the first roar of the hunt. But the way you know this is the second roar type is that the first roar will last a little bit longer and then he'll start to smoke. The second roar comes immediately after you see that smoke with a large explosion. Now before I mention the two situations that he does this roar, it's worthy to note one of his mechanics to understand why he does this. Magnamalo's body parts have hellfire on them, and those are his weak spots. If you do enough damage to most of those parts, he will knock over and lose his hellfire status. If you don't break the hellfire weak spots in time, he'll just recharge or shift the weak spots using this second roar. Alternatively, if you do break the hellfire weak spots, he'll need to recharge them, so again he's going to do this second type of roar. Now because of the blast that comes up at the end of the second roar, you can't be too close to him, but the radius also isn't very large, so if you have earplugs or if you have a special weapon like the glaive that aren't affected by the roar, you can actually be pretty close up, get some damage on the head, roll back to safety while he explodes, and then roll back in to get more damage as he readjusts. Moving on here, let's talk about his two basic claw attacks. One is a straight smash to the ground. If he's not in range or doesn't have hellfire, he'll usually just do like one smash. The only thing you really need to watch out for here is whichever arm is cocked up, that's the one he's going to smash with. You can roll to the other arm and then you can damage the other arm while he readjusts. If he is enraged, he'll probably do this twice unless it's following a big attack. So just kind of keep an eye out for that. He'll do one arm and then the other arm, and then you have time to attack. Unless there is a Bullfango that gets in your way. So here's an example of just actually following up a big attack. He's going to do a double spin, and then he's going to jump towards us, and he's going to try and smash us with one arm. After that, he's going to readjust, and you can turn around and hit him in the head. The second claw attack that he has is similar-ish, but he kind of follows it up with a semicircle brush in the area in front of him. So a simple rollback will clear you to safety, but you can also counter these attacks. Now the only thing I'll warn you about here is that if the hands are glowing, specifically his arms, right, you have to be aware he has Hellfire and he's going to cause Hellfire explosions when he hits the ground. Even the brush as well, wherever he brushes, are going to explode with Hellfire explosions. So any of his claw attacks, they are good to counter unless he has Hellfire on his arms. The explosions will get you while you are countering. Now those are some of the basics. He has a few more basics like a quick thrust attack similar to most other monsters, so we're going to move on to some of his bigger attacks. Now first up, the aerial bite explosion attack. I don't know what it's actually called, but it's basically the attack where he throws you up and tries to bite explode you. Now he does this in two ways. The first is a rather simple way. If he's enraged, he'll try to bite down on the ground, kind of push forward and then launch you upwards. This is a really quick attack, so if you're right under him, you're definitely in a pinch. The key to noticing this is that he will growl and raise his head in a little bit of a circle before he starts his attack. This is your cue to kind of move to the side. Once he finishes the growl, he's locked in that direction and he's quickly, but slightly, just stand up on his hind legs and then thrust forward into the ground. If you're in his line of attack, you will get thrown into the air and he's going to attempt to reach up and bite you and cause an explosion around you. So this is usually a one-hit kill, especially if you're damaged even a little bit. The only real way to escape once you're caught in the air is you have to wire bug to survive. This is one of the few attacks in the game that actually requires a wire bug to actually survive. So that's why it's actually really key when you're fighting Magnamalo to be able to save these just in case you get caught by this attack. Now there are a few variations for him to start this attack method. If he's enraged and he has Hellfire, sometimes he'll be a little bit more active and he'll either run around you or he'll try to jetpack boost behind you, and that's also your cue to keep moving. He's going to try to wrap around you, then stop and then proceed to get on his hind legs and do the same attack. If he does this, the attack will again release some purple smoke and you'll either have to get away from him, or if you can get to his tail, that's actually a safe spot. Either way, the head is not a safe spot and that's the last place that you want to be, especially because of that explosion after the bite. Now in the rarest occasions, usually when he's got the pink Hellfire, he's going to do them immediately after another attack. These ones are very hard to predict, so you're going to have to just keep an eye out and see if he raises his head, try to dodge out of that direction because that's the direction he's going in. And again, that's why you're also saving the wire bugs. All the other attacks we talk about in this video, this is why you're learning to dodge those without the wire bug, because in case you get hit by this attack, you have a wire bug to get you to safety and avoid a cart. The second way that he does his attack is actually a double spin towards you. He's going to raise one arm up and then open his mouth and kind of growl at you, which is your indication to move. While he does the growl, that's when he locks his direction of travel. Basically where his mouth is pointing. Keep an eye on where his mouth is pointing. Then you can dodge out of that direction and prepare for a counterattack. After he does the double spin, if you get caught at any point in that attack, you will be launched into the air in a similar pattern, and then again you have to wire bug to get out before you start descending or you will blow up. If you do manage to dodge it, he will have purple smoke around him again that explodes after 2 seconds. So again, going to the tail, if you can, is the safest area to get some damage in. If you successfully dodge this attack though, be ready for one more follow-up. Unlike the first attack, this one he does the spin. If he misses, he will still attack you with a claw smash or less frequently a tail smash. So just keep an eye out for that. Now, having mentioned the aerial explosion attack, there's 2 things I want to note here for you to keep in mind. Number 1, the growl and head circle is actually pretty common for a few attacks. So it's a really good indicator that something big is coming. This is not the time you want to be starting a combo. This is the time you want to move and prepare yourself to see what's coming next so you can react. Number 2, you may have noticed, and we talked about this, the purple smokes that explode over time. He actually does this for quite a few attacks that we'll talk about later. and it can be scary to approach at first. The timing though is very generous of about 3 seconds before it actually blows up. So once you get a feel for that space, you'll know how to move. For most basic attacks, releasing that cloud, you can move towards him. That's okay. It's actually pretty safe to just go past the clouds, and then you can actually damage him while they explode around him. The only attacks that you shouldn't move towards him but instead run away from are the aerial explosion attacks that we just mentioned previously. Those are the only ones that blow up in his face as well. So if you dodge the ground bite or the double spin, he'll still have purple smoke and it'll look very similar to his basic attacks, but he'll also have those body explosions, so your only option is to back away. Now, speaking of tails, let's talk about some of his tail attacks. The first one is very basic. It's just a typical ground smash with the tail. If he raises his tail with a slight wag while taking a half step back, that's your cue to know that he's going to spin and just smash his tail on the ground, and it's going to get jammed. The key to noticing that attack is the pivot. He'll do it rather quickly and pivot off of one hand. That way you'll know which side he attacks from, and you can wait for the attack to come down. Once it actually hits the ground, you have a decent window to get 2 to 3 hits because his tail actually gets jammed in the ground. Now, as I mentioned before, Rai's iframes are very precise. The attacks are possible to iframe, but I wouldn't rely on it, and instead I would be as close as you can outside of the hitboxes. This attack is iframeable, but you have to basically roll exactly when his arm lands on the ground, because the next frame is the tail that's going to land. So if you watch that arm and roll right with it, you will actually dodge the tail as well. If you've done this correctly, you can turn right around and get some damage on his tail. So in this example here, his left arm doesn't move, meaning he's going to balance while he pivots his whole body, meaning that he's going to attack from his right or our left. Depending on your position, rolling left or right does work, but generally speaking, rolling to the opposite side of the attack is a little bit safer than threading the needle. But again, it depends where you're standing. Once the tail lands, it's jammed and you can damage. This attack does leave his head open as well, so if you need to attack his head or arms, go for it. His entire front side is also very open. As I mentioned previously, he can combine some attacks. The double spin attack that he does, he usually ends off with a claw smash or a tail smash. This is the tail smash that he'll do, so keep an eye out for it. The second tail attack is a bit slower and it does give you a little bit more space to prepare. It's like a tail jab more than anything else, where he starts to back up 1 to 2 steps, he'll growl a little bit and then launch his tail towards you. Now this attack can come from both sides, but Magnamalo likes to choose based on his positioning to use, so just watch his tail. Whichever side that he revs up on is the side that he's going to attack you from. If you're very close to this, he will launch the tail. You might be able to roll dodge and then attack it immediately, but there's a very small window as he doesn't get stuck in the ground compared to the last tail attack. This is very much a counterable attack as well, and one of the good things with this attack is no matter how far he is, he's definitely going to make that leap to catch up to you. Unless of course you're like across the area, but besides that, most of the time he's going to jump that distance to attack you, so you can just sit down wherever you are and prepare for your counter attack. There are iframes on this attack again, just like the last tail attack, but again, super precise, and you're basically rolling as he pushes his tail forward. So this is after he lands, but before that tail has full accelerated into your face. So again, not entirely worth testing or relying on Switch, maybe on PC, but we'll have to see when it launches. Now his third attack is such a dramatic attack with 2 parts, and it comes in various forms. He almost acts as if he's kind of annoyed with you, and he'll stomp his tail on the ground first behind him, and then he goes into a full complete spin attack, whipping his tail directly in front of him as he's backing up. Now very simply, to dodge this first part, you just need to roll to the right or backwards, depending on your positioning. Part 2 begins here when he does one of 2 things. If you're close by, he might try to finish you off with a spinning tail smash. If this is the case, he doesn't land on the ground, and what he does is he actually just boosts himself in the air and then smashes the tail on the position you were standing. If you're a little far from him, he will instead land on all 4 and walk up to you and do a regular claw smash. Now, dodging this attack is pretty easy. Part 2 is just a regular tail smash. He tends to land it always on your left, so moving right a few steps or one roll will put you in the clear. Now this also means that the attack is highly anticipatable, and you can get some good damage in by turning right around and getting some attacks as soon as the tail lands. It's going to get jammed to the ground again, so you can get some damage in. Alternatively, his left arm will also be very open to you when he lands, so you can get some good damage in there if you like. One of the main variations that you'll see of this move is that sometimes he'll skip the whole spinning attack and just jump in the air and then do a spin and do the tail smash. So kind of really that part 2 part of the attack. The way you'll notice that he does kind of tend to growl a little bit and lower his head a little bit. That's an indication to you, you gotta move. Finally, we have one last tail attack, which is kind of a special one. The Tornado Hellfire, definitely one of his coolest moves in my opinion. So Magnamalo will occasionally use this move, and he'll start by backing up like 2 steps to create a big distance and then start spinning his tail like mad. This is basically him charging up his attack, and it lasts about 1.5 seconds, so that's about the time you have, until he smashes down his tail, launching a tornado blast of hellfire towards you. Now it's a really cool and aesthetically amazing attack, definitely one of my faves, but it does hurt. How you want to dodge this attack is, first of all, don't panic. The main thing is, whatever direction you're walking in, try to keep moving in that direction and try to tilt towards a 45-degree angle towards him. So you're kind of moving closer towards him but still moving to the side. You want to close that distance while he's charging, but save your roll for the last second just before he launches the attack. Your cue to roll is again when the paw comes down to the ground. The paw moving up is him shifting his body to launch the attack, and if you roll at that moment to the left or right direction, whichever you're moving in, you will dodge the attack that follows the tail coming right after it lands. Additionally, if you were closing the distance and you rolled at an angle, you are now closer to him, and you can probably do 1 or 2 more rolls really quickly to get close to him to deal damage. He has a long cooldown after this, kind of like readjusts himself, so you can definitely get a decent sized combo in there with most basic melee weapons. Now the attack itself is counterable, however for most weapons the distance does not make it worth it. Insect Glaive is actually an exception here because we do have the ability to fly, so if you do advance / counter this attack, you can leap forward and actually land a diving wyvern on his head. Alright, the final 2 attacks that I want to talk about, which are fairly similar, his special attacks. So he has a dive bomb attack, which is a smaller version of his ultimate. It usually follows up again after a small stance roar, which he rotates his head, and then instead he leaps back and holds his ground, and then ducks his head while growling, which is sort of your indication that something big is coming. You need to prepare by pretty much getting ready to roll forward and to the right or left, whichever direction, so again that 45-degree angle. After a second, he's going to leap straight into the air, and then he's going to jet rocket directly to where you are standing. If you roll slightly forward and right or left, you should be safe, and you can immediately do a 180 and head right back to him. He'll have an opening here as he kind of shakes off bonking his head on the ground. His attack is also very counterable, but for most weapons again, it's not entirely efficient since he actually slides backwards after landing on the spot where you were standing. Now, if you react late and you don't have time to dodge, this attack is counterable. Just wait till he basically lands on your face and apply your counter. All weapons can counter them if you have a counter. It'll be very effective to keep you safe, but getting damage is going to be a little bit difficult because he doesn't just stop where he lands. He kind of slides backwards, so you basically won't be able to attack him. Insect Glaive again has the advantage here because we can actually helicopter towards the enemy, basically fly, and land our attack on his head. Once again, I don't know all the counters for all the weapons. I'm just getting back into Rise in 2022 here, so hopefully for the next videos in this series, I'll have a better understanding of the other counters and be able to give you that information. Now, Magnamalo's super ultimate is kind of very similar to this dive bomb. It's actually a deviation of this dive bomb. And it actually links back to his mechanic that you have to damage the hellfire spots on his body. If you don't damage enough spots on his body when he has pink hellfire, he's going to ultimately end up by using his ultimate attack to basically release that pink hellfire. If you don't break them in time, he basically will begin this by taking 2 big leaps back and then start a mega roar with an explosion around him to clear the area as he charges up. This is his super dive bomb, and he begins by charging straight at you. So your best bet right now is that to back up. Just back up quite a bit because he's going to run 2 to 3 steps forward towards you. Then he's going to circle around and go back to his starting position. From there, he jumps into the air and does the same actions as the mini dive bomb we previously mentioned. So again, just as the last one, you can do the same sort of thing where you roll to the side, 45-degree angle, turn 180 once he lands, and then go straight back to him to get some damage. And that's about it for the main attacks of Magnamalo. Now he does have a few other small attacks that aren't too bad to dodge or counter. Very similar to other monsters, you know, things that like maybe he just wants to give some space. He'll do like a tail wag in front of him, or he'll take a leap back and maybe just do like a little like a thrusting attack towards you. Very similar to other monsters, so I'm sure you guys can figure those ones out. A few times, if you're really close to him, he'll also try to like lunge bite you once to the right and then once to the left. It's a simple move of just dodging the opposite way or dodging backwards depending on your position. So that's about it for Magnamalo. I think we covered most of his main attacks. Let me know if you liked this video. Let me know if it was helpful in the comments, guys. Let me know if there's something that you want me to comment on or maybe provide some extra information. Again, I'm going to be doing these videos for more of the monsters in Rise leading up to Sunbreak, to the new monsters we're going to get in Sunbreak as well. So be sure to let me know. I'm going to improve this video series. I'm really excited in 2022, so I hope you guys are too. Let me know in the comments below. I hope this helps some of you, and for those of you new on PC, welcome to Monster Hunter Rise. Good luck with your hunts. Magnamalo is definitely one of my favorite hunts, and I hope you enjoy them. Till next time, hunters, take care, stay safe, keep hunting. Scott Sensei is out.